Okay, we're back with you here on Gridiron, and this is Larry Kelly's segment for Red Hurricane Report. Larry, the floor is yours, sir.
Well, I guess another good news, bad news night for the Red Hurricane. They were losing 35-0 at halftime. That's the bad news. I mean, they ended up losing the game 42-20 to Ambridge, which I think maybe it was their second win of the year. And so therefore, to just look at the final score and to look at the halftime score, you might say, well, again, more of the same, but no. Two things that I noticed, two sophomores, again, had some big nights. Kyrell Harris, the quarterback, throws 3 touchdown passes, it looks like 2 touchdown passes. And Nate McKnight, another sophomore, young man who played basketball for me, tremendous athlete, steps in and scores 3 touchdowns. He catches a 35-yard touchdown pass from Kyrell Harris. He runs it in from 13 yards out, and he also gets another 25-yard pass from Kyrell. So, Tyler Leakins is a senior. Mistakenly called him an underclassman in the last few weeks, but that's not true. He's had a pretty good year. He might be an all-conference player, and the Red Hurricane are going to need somebody to step into those shoes, and it looks like Nate McKnight may fit that role. As I said, I know Nate. He's a young man, tremendous athleticism, and he obviously has a set of really good hands. You got a sophomore quarterback who's thrown a bunch of touchdown passes this year, and not just 4 6-yard flips. I mean, we're talking about he probably has, I don't know, Ronnie, you should know this, maybe close to somewhere between 5 and 10 touchdown passes that were 30 yards or more. So, I mean, look, I think you can build on that. I'm sure that Coach Robinson was a little disappointed. That was a game that they could win, and, just started way too slowly, but did show some resolve, didn't quit, played hard, played to the end, and, put up 195 yards passing, 283 yards total. The problem was, again, high school football is normally about running the football, and Ambridge rushed it for almost 260 yards. So when you do that in the high school game, you control the clock, you wear down the defense, and that's a winning formula. So even though they didn't win, even though once again, I think I read in your column, it was another game where, a running clock, the mercy rule was in effect. But, I take a little bit of sober satisfaction in knowing that those young men didn't quit, and they put up 20 points, in the second half.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that kind of went sideways for them, and I don't know if it was already 7-0 or if it was early in the game. It was definitely early in the game. But it might have happened before there was any scoring. Kyrell Harris found Tyler Leakins down by the goal line on a long pass, and Tyler Leakins fumbled right around the 3-yard line or so. So I mean, they had their chances in that game. That was one of them. And I think if I remember right, there were 6 possessions in the first half for Newcastle. 5 of them ventured into Ambridge territory. And they ended up with either turnover on downs or that turnover. So they had their chances, going for it on 4th down. I think one time around the 30-yard line. Then naturally the fumble that Tyler Leakins had on the 3-yard line. You got to figure that could have been a much different ball game, especially at halftime.
Sure. I mean, look, it's Tyler Leakins has had a pretty good year. As I said, he's caught a bunch of touchdown passes. He has blazing speed. High school kids, again, sometimes you fumble the ball. It just happens. That's a physical error. I think what's happened to Newcastle time and time again is, the mental errors, the mental part of the game, where maybe you blow a coverage in the secondary. How many times have teams scored at the end of the first half with 20, 30-yard touchdown passes? Things like that should never happen. And, Stacy has spoken to that. We're not telling him anything that he doesn't already know, just reading his comments. He says the breakdowns, blocking, penalties, just not executing offensively. It's what the game's all about. You have to execute both offensively and defensively. I always say defense in any sport, whether it be basketball, football, it's all about discipline. You got to have discipline. You got to do your job. You got to cover your gap. You got to do those little things, not once, not twice, but play in and play out. And that's how you become successful. So again, even though they lost the game, even though it was another mercy rule game, I saw a little silver lining in what happened in the second half, especially when you consider that the two guys that were responsible for that are two sophomores and will be around a couple more years.
Yeah, absolutely. We have discussed enough doom and gloom with the Red Hurricane report this year. As everyone knows, they're 1-8. However, let's spin it positively, Larry. You got the facts are you got one game left. It's a road game. It's Friday night at Blackhawk. It's a rival, and Blackhawk's going to the playoffs. And we've watched enough sports to know that you hear coaches mention the cliche of winning is a great deodorant. Well, wouldn't that be a great way to end the season, the 2022 season, by having a great deodorant last throughout the off season of a win over your rival, a rival that's going to the postseason, and it's something to build on for off-season conditioning, the weight training, something for those young men to carry on into the off-season. Any thoughts on that?
Well, sure. They need something positive to happen from a team aspect because they haven't had it, and that would be great. And if it could happen, you're absolutely right. Not just go do it, play a complete game. They've had some slow starts that, they've been behind 35-0, 48-0 at halftime. Those are tough situations to overcome. On a bright note, we can't end the Hurricane report without talking about my dear friend, and as I always said, my hero, Sam Flora. Sam's a special individual. I've known Sam since we were kids. We played football for his father, Sam Flora Sr., for the East Side Rams. And, Sammy was a few years older than me. So growing up, I always looked at him with much admiration, and I still do. And he's a Red Hurricane through and through. Nobody loves Newcastle athletics more than Sam Flora. I don't know that anybody's been involved longer than him. And, coaching up there for as long as I did, whenever I needed something, the first phone call I made was to Sam, and never failed me. Always had the answer, always, and if he didn't have it, he'd get it. He always got done what we needed to get done. And I'm going to miss seeing my brother. I know that. And he spent a lot of years at that school, and they ought to build a statue for him too. He's one of those guys.
Mm-hmm. Speaking from a media perspective, Sam was very good to the Newcastle News, very gracious anytime we needed something, a spot, whether it be football, basketball. We had questions, rescheduling of an event or anything like that. He always got back to us, always answered the question, always helped us out. So from that aspect, you commented on him as an athlete, playing with him and stuff like that. From our end, from media end, first class, definitely very helpful. We'll miss him in that regard. That was his final home game. He lost to Ambridge. So if memory serves me correctly, he'll be in the position until November 4th. So yeah, we're going to miss him also. It's going to be a great loss. It'd be big shoes to fill, whoever they hire, and whenever they hire the new athletic director. It's got to be soon. If he's done on the November 4th, I mean, that's coming. That's I believe a week from Friday.
What people don't realize too, the younger kids, you know, Sam was a great football player, a great football player. He was the two back in Lindy's offense, and my man was the real deal. So yeah, Sam, we'll miss you, brother, and you will forever, ever be the epitome of a Red Hurricane and what Newcastle athletics is all about.
All right. That is the Red Hurricane Report. We will have another Red Hurricane Report next week.
There's one thing I learned growing up around here. People should look out for each other. Be friends and neighbors that you can count on. So it bothers me when people who are hurt in automobile accidents get bullied by the insurance company. I don't let bullies run over my clients. I do what I was taught growing up. Step up, stand up, and speak up for those who can't. I'm Larry Kelly, and I'm a Newcastle guy.